I know that many of you, virtually all of you, have traveled very long distances to be here. And I welcome all the rights holders, the nations, the treaty and non-treaty territories represented here this morning, as well as those of you who are joining us virtually. And I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the many First Nations that have been impacted by the devastating wildfires. I would also like to, if I may, if you'll indulge me, to compliment my colleagues, Ministers Chartrand, Alte, Golmasti, Minister Olszewski, who've worked tirelessly to help provide and work with First Nations to combat these fires and protect our people. There are multiple leaders who could not be here today due to the fires. But my commitment, our commitment, is to make sure that they are engaged and included in the conversations as we move forward. We'll also be launching a regional dialogue and a consultation process that will provide further opportunity for input and feedback. So, today is about the future of our economies, or our economies, and how we weave them together so that they're stronger together. How we can build a new economy together. An economy that moves from reliance to resilience. We have too much reliance on a certain foreign market. We have too much reliance on certain commodities. We can build resilience, but we can only build resilience together. We have to move from division to unity and move from operating in silos into partnerships. Now, in that discussion, we will, of course, discuss, as some of you did yesterday, the One Canadian Economy Act, and particularly the Building Canada Act, what it means, how we bring it to life in the right way. And I think that's the first point I really want to emphasize, is that this act is only a way of starting a conversation and starting a process. And we define that process going forward. But what it could do is enable Canada to build big things that will connect and transform our national economy. Create great careers, not just jobs, but careers for the people that we serve, and provide the resources for health, for education, and social services that our people deserve. It's about giving ourselves more than any foreign government can ever take away. It's about controlling our economic destiny together. With this legislation, the word nation carries more than one meaning. Building Canada projects, national projects in the national interest, will build our national economy through Indigenous equity and full participation, equity participation and resource management. Projects built with Indigenous partners, with Indigenous communities. And the point is, one of the points is that the economic value of these projects will be shared with First Nations as partners. You will help build the prosperity of your communities for generations to come. By moving forward together, we can write a new chapter. We together can write a new chapter in the relationship between the Government of Canada and First Nations. And those aren't just words. This isn't an aspiration. This is the law. This is the law as it is written. The plan is embedded in the law itself. In many respects, this is the first federal legislation to put Indigenous economic growth at its core. We now have the opportunity to realize it. So today we're going to discuss how we can do this together, particularly by hearing directly from you about what you want to build, how you want to build to help build our nations. We have an ambitious agenda today, and our objectives are fourfold. First, we'll discuss how best to work together meaningfully through engagement and consultation. How do we do that? Secondly, we'll review the role of the new Federal Major Projects Office and how it will work with the new Indigenous Advisory Council to get big projects built in the right way. Third, we'll discuss how the federal government can work with First Nations to build opportunities for equitable economic prosperity, partnership, and full participation in major projects. And finally, at the end, I'll help moderate a session on how we can work together on the implementation of this legislation. And during that session, obviously, I'll be very happy to take your questions at that time. I'll also be here throughout the day, and I look forward to having informal discussions with as many of you as possible. The conversations today are about hearing from you as participants in building First Nations communities as we together build our nation. And we fully recognize there's many diverse perspectives, which is exactly why we've assembled this group. And thank you again for coming physically and virtually and in spirit. To further that outreach, next week I will meet with the Inuit Crown Partnership Committee and soon thereafter with Métis leadership to continue these conversations. But before I cede the floor, I just want to spend a few more moments on how we would like to move forward. I'm going to start again on how we intend to go on. Respecting the rights of Indigenous peoples is a fundamental purpose of the Building Canada Act. The Act requires meaningful consultation with Indigenous peoples, both in the process of determining which projects are in our collective interests and in the development of the conditions for those projects going forward. This is a legal requirement in the Act, which honors Section 35 of our Constitution and the duty to consult. It upholds the government's commitment to implement the UN Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, including free, prior, and informed consent. To help put this into action, the new Major Federal Projects Office will have that Indigenous Advisory Council to advise on the implementation of this bill and to ensure that Indigenous perspectives are fully integrated at each stage of the process. That council will be comprised of First Nations, Inuit, Métis, modern treaty, and self-government representatives. We'll talk more about the structure and the operation of that council later today. Now, being a reliable partner to Indigenous peoples goes beyond upholding the duty to consult. It goes to creating and enabling the creation of long-term wealth and prosperity for Indigenous peoples through full equity ownership of projects. And that's why we decided to double the Indigenous Loan Guarantee Programme to $10 billion to enable more Indigenous communities to acquire equity ownership of major projects without cost. We've substantially broadened the types of projects that are eligible for this through this type of financing, from not just natural resource projects, of course those exist, projects in the energy sector, in electricity generation, in environmental technologies such as carbon capture, in critical minerals, in port infrastructure, in transportation infrastructure, and well beyond. All the major projects that we're looking to build as a country. We're also dedicating $40 million to new funding to support First Nations, Inuit, and Métis participation in this process. Money that will help build capacity for negotiations, to help with project selection and development. And we'd like to have your direct feedback on the parameters for this funding to ensure that it's most effectively used. The Building Canada Act defines projects in the national interest as those which meet 5 criteria: strengthening Canada's autonomy, our resilience, our security; providing other economic benefits to Canada; having a high likelihood of being successfully executed; contributing to clean development and our environmental objectives; and advancing the interests of Indigenous peoples. Examples of those projects could include highways, railways, ports, new energy, and trade corridors. Key point, there is no list of those projects yet. There's ideas out there. Projects will be proposed by many stakeholders. The provinces have ideas. There will be ideas from the private sectors, and there will be ideas directly from First Nations. There's multiple ways that we can collaborate on these projects, and I just want to highlight a few recent examples before I close. We look at Cedar LNG, which is a new floating liquefied natural gas processing facility and export terminal in British Columbia. It's a partnership between a private company, Pembina Pipeline, and the Haisla Nation. The nation, Haisla Nation, wanted this project built, and the federal government worked with the Haisla Nation to provide the financing so there was equity ownership. It's a project that's a gold standard for infrastructure projects in Canada, creating over 400 jobs, generating over $275 million in GDP during the construction and an additional $85 million year in and year out annually thereafter. Much of that will go directly to the community. It'll be powered by clean energy and produce ultra-low carbon liquefied natural gas. It'll diversify our trading relationships into Asia, strengthen our economy here at home. So it's the type of projects that's transformative that has the partnership, and it's an example on which we can build. It'll help change the lives of the workers, not just the workers on the project, but the community members for generations because of that flow of future income that goes directly to the community. Because of projects and opportunities like this, because of the prosperity they create, whether it's Cedar LNG, the Enbridge West Coast Natural Gas Pipeline, or the partnerships between Hydro-Quebec and the Gatineau Mohawk that those projects will create. There are children who will grow up with a greater sense of security and prosperity and possibility. There'll be more resources for First Nations to determine how to use them, whether in community centers, in health, in schools, and beyond. And there'll be a foundation on which our people can build good, fulfilling lives. Really, in the end, what this is about, yes, selecting, building, and building in the right way major projects, but it's about building our country strong, building our nation strong, to empower our people with opportunity, with security and prosperity. And that's what we can build together. Canada's new government is committed to working together so we can build Canada together for everyone's benefit. I want to thank you again for being here today. I want to thank you for considering putting your trust in this process. I want to thank you in advance for the work that we will do together today and in the months and the years ahead. And now we will get to work. And thank you for your attention. Merci beaucoup.